Well, this was in the mailbox this morning. Well, this is a little bit large for the mailbox, but this came this morning. This is my B&W Companion Slider hitch. Well, the only real downside to this hitch, if there is one, is that it's awful heavy. To reduce the weight that you have to contend with to put the hitch on the bed of the truck, the hitch comes in two pieces. It comes with the base, as you see here, and then the hitch head. And it weighs about 275 pounds total. And this part here weighs about 175, which is still quite a bit even for a couple people. So I went out and bought a 1-ton crane, and hopefully that'll help me get it into the bed. I should also point out that the companion hitch will only work with a B&W gooseneck hitch. So you have to either install this yourself, or like I did, I actually had this installed by the same people that sprayed in my bed liner. So they did it all at one shot. Now when you lock the lever in place, you got to make sure that it's sticking through the other side so that it's covered up by that sleeve as part of the hitch. Now that we've got the hitch in place, we have to adjust these runners so that they fit in between the ribs in the bed. Well, after installing the companion base, I see that we have about an 1/8-inch gap here where it's not resting on the bottom of the bed. Now when I called B&W about it, they acknowledged that GM for about the last 5 years have been putting a crown in their bed, so that's what the issue is. And when I put a straight edge in this bed, you can see that there's a crown in the bed. The other thing B&W suggested is to loosen all these bolts on the underside of the turnover ball frame, and once those are all loosened, take a board with a hammer and try to tap down from the top, because they suggested even moving this thing down 1/16 of an inch would help. Now B&W is fully aware of the crown in the GM vehicles, and they said that in the past that has taken care of the problem. B&W also suggested loosening the side bolt to see if that'll help bring everything into alignment. Well, I did all that, but still we've got a gap here on the back side. Now up front, it's flush, which is where the hitch is going to be residing most of the time. Now again, I called him and asked him if it would be permissible to put a shim in here to shim this up, because there are 3 cross members on the frame. 2 up front, which are flush, and then the 3rd cross member goes right across here underneath the body. They recommended not doing it because it could warp the bed. However, since there's a frame member underneath here, I don't see how it's going to warp the bed, because that is going to be against the frame. This little graphic just kind of shows how the companion hitch fits over the frame. As you can see, the green truck frame cross members are centered over the hitch in the toe position, and as well there is one that's centered over the very end of the companion hitch frame. Now B&W says that it probably will settle down over time, and if it does, then great. If not, I'm considering putting a shim under the companion hitch frame at the rear frame cross member, just large enough so that it transfers the load to the frame. Now there's no way that this is going to bend the bed as long as I limit the area of contact to where the truck frame cross member is. Now one thing I'm a little disappointed in with B&W is that they've apparently known about this crown in the GM beds for some time, yet they haven't really seemed to adequately done anything to take care of that issue. So I'm going to kind of take a few points away from B&W for that. Otherwise, this looks to be a very nice hitch, but you know, if it doesn't fit right in the GM beds, then they probably need to do some re-engineering. Now to give you a few dimensions, the center of the turnover ball is 44 3/4 of an inch in front of the rear of the tailgate, 44 3/4 of an inch from there to there. And I've got these uprights in the lowest position pointed towards the back, which gives me 3 inches towards the rear. If I turned around and put them on the front, it'd be 1 inch behind the turnover ball. But turned around is 3 inches behind the turnover ball. That means the hitch itself is about 17 to 17 and a half inches above the bed. And in the maneuver position, the center of the pin box would go is about 31 and a half inches in front of the rear. And since the center wheel is about 39 inches ahead, then that means this is about 8 inches behind the center line of the wheel. And in the forward position, the center of the kingpin is about 43 inches in front of the bed rear, which means it's about 4 inches in front of the center line of the rear wheels. And I've done a few dimensions here. I calculated that the top of the roof of the truck is going to be 15 inches from here. So I have a plumb bob on that mark. Also, the top of the bed is going to be here, so I'll have to make a dimension from the pin box to there to see how much space we've got. So from the pin box to the string, I've got just about 48 inches. And then when I measure from the kingpin location to the edge of the bed, 48 inches, I laid a piece of tape here, and that's the maximum turn that I can have in the forward position before I impact the C-pillar. So I've calculated that with the slider hitch in the forward position, before my fifth wheel smacks the C-pillar of my truck, I can do a 55-degree angle turn, which when I compare to the turn radius of the truck, I'm thinking I can only do about a 30-degree angle turn in forward anyway, so this is going to give me a 20-degree safety margin. So I don't think I have to worry at all about any contact with the truck when I'm forward. Now, of course, reversing is a different story. In that case, we can move this back to the maneuver position and let's see how much clearance we have. Now, the slider hitch in the maneuver position, 48 inches, which is what the clearance of the trailer is going to come to about right here on this seam. So we're going to be able to do 90-degree turns with about 2 inches to spare. And again, you'll never probably do 90-degree angle because that's really starting to stress your frame on your trailer when you do that. But it's nice to know that we have the extra maneuvering capability if we need it. Now I also measured side clearance. So I found out that right here is the bed height and bed width. 30 inches from where the kingpin fits in the receiver. So at a full 90 degrees, I could smack my tonneau cover rail right here. So again, I probably never ever do 90 degrees. Or if you do 85 degrees, which is even still more than you're probably going to do, you probably won't hit anything. One of the things that I was curious about on this B&W hitch is how this locking mechanism worked. You know, most hitches have like a security bar that goes across the front of the jaws, or the jaws are interlocking or something, but these jaws are just split right here. Or I'm thinking, what mechanism is used to make sure those things don't come apart? Well, if I move them back, on the back side, when you open and close these, it's kind of like a wedge that gets wedged in to the two jaws. So the jaws are closed, and when this wedge is in place, they pretty much can't open. So I don't see really an issue with the integrity of this. This is just a simplified drawing of how the jaws are open and closed and secured by the locking cam. As you can see here, the locking cam, when it closes the jaws, it provides a stop that the jaws cannot open against. And since we're in the bed of the truck, I'll show you this whole thing about, it's called a gear grabber or cargo grabber or something. And the nice thing is, you don't have to climb up into the bed to do things. And it just stores on a couple of cable ties I have here. Like that. And finally, since we're in the bed, I'll talk about this bed cover. It's made by Pace Edwards, called Jackrabbit, and unfortunately it didn't quite fit. And this is designed for a GM pickup, and these are a little bit too long, these rails, and actually I had to grind down the ends even to get the tailgate shut. And this is fully forward, all the way forward as it is. And also up here up front, these screws were off, so I had to do some banging and chucking and stuff to get even these screws in. But now that it's more or less in correctly, they want you to screw this into the top here, but I actually just put a cheap carabiner on it so they could easily get it out of the way, because it could interfere with the hitch. This thing locks every 12 inches, so you can close it part way. So, for instance, in this case, I can provide a little bit more security for any contents that I have stored underneath here by having it cover just before the hitch. And then you can lock it. So it really provides a nice cover for the hitch.